Okay. I'm ready now.
Okay. The XFL Markcast. Hello there. Week 3. Hope everybody's doing great. Hopefully everybody's paying attention. Hopefully everybody's invested again, just like we are. I'm Paul Sanchez.
I'm Reed Johnson.
And we're going to run through the stuff that we've seen and heard over the last week in regards to the XFL's 2.1 or 3.0. I don't know what we're calling this.
I still like 2.1. A lot of people are calling it 3.0. I think as long as you have the same teams and the same cities right now, I'm going with 2.1 or 2.5. I like 2.1. That seems good.
I like 2.1 as well. It's pretty good because it's not, 20 years after the initial project flopped. This is like the next year. So 2.1 is an adequate thing. I think we should all adopt that.
Yeah, if we could get on the same page, I think that would help with the branding. Also, if we could get a hashtag figured out, because I've still been doing hashtag XFL 2020, and then I've also been doing hashtag XFL 2021, which seems more apropos. But if we could really, as a collective internet, get on one of those, because I've been having to copy and paste when I'm doing my retweets, and it's getting a lot.
It's going to be a bit much. So let's all agree on one hashtag and go forward from there.
Yes, and that should be for the love of football.
For the love of football. Right.
For the love of football.
So first things first, I wanted to discuss the coaches issue. Next week, apparently, they're finding out who's going to stick around. Of course, the DC coach, Pep Hamilton. He will definitely not be sticking around. I don't see him coming back to be a head coach in the XFL, seeing that he is in an NFL franchise coaching system. He's the QB coach of the LA Chargers. Still getting used to saying LA Chargers. He's the QB coach there. So you've got, 7 coaches that are still remaining.
I tell you, and I love Mark, and I love the News Hub. But even this article, it's like a source close to me, doesn't want to be named, says that we're potentially finding out next week. I don't know if I believe that. I'm sorry. And I wish, believe me, I wish there was a lot more XFL news. I put together the Google Docs so we would have some talking points today because, at first glance, there's not a lot on the surface to talk about. I think we have a lot of good talking points today, but yeah, I think a lot of people thought Monday, okay, big news, or, what's going to happen, Jeffrey Pollock, or we're going to talk about, who's replacing Oliver Luck. I don't know if this coaches thing, I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff that's running around right now, and we can talk about the whole 2021 season tickets later on too, because that's another fun story to cover.
Yeah, I don't understand why they would, why that would be a priority to let the coach know next week if they'll be retained. I think, like you said, naming the new commissioner, since Oliver Luck will not be back due to probably personal and legal issues, naming the new commissioner seems like the most important task the team has to undertake. And of course, Jeffrey Pollock is the guy that's being mentioned as, the guy that people are making a case for in terms of becoming the new XFL commissioner. Yeah,
I don't know. Some of these articles, and you see them, and like I said, Mark, love him. We met him, but where it's, a source close to me doesn't want to be mentioned. Okay, I don't. I want it too. Believe me, I don't know if I want Zorn back as a Dragons fan. Well, I got into a Twitter debate this week. We lost our offensive whoever right before the season started, and Zorn was trying to do double duty and do play calls and. You'd see him down there because, you can hear everything and he just wouldn't even know. He just wouldn't even know so, and maybe that's not Zorn's fault. I would like, as a Dragons fan, I think, Pep Hamilton was great. You had Stoops and you had Jeffrey Hayes Jeffrey Hayes in St. Louis. I would like someone besides Zorn. But besides that, I do not think the coaches are getting announced next week. No.
I think that the reason why Zorn is the Seattle Dragons, or was, I don't know what you want to call it, currently still is, the reason you have that guy as their head coach is because he's a Seattle legend. Just because someone is a Seattle legend or a city legend, it doesn't necessarily make them a good coach. I think Jim Harbaugh is having some of those issues in Ann Arbor right now as the Michigan head coach. He's a Michigan man, but he's just not quite getting the job done up there. So while I appreciate the sentimental value of having Jim Zorn as the head coach of the Seattle team, we've seen the Jim Zorn experience happen on the pro level in the NFL, and it hasn't turned out very well. So maybe, Reed, you'll get your wish that'll happen.
And Jonathan Hayes. Sorry, not Jeffrey Hayes. Jonathan Hayes. Jonathan Hayes. So sorry.
Sorry about that.
It's been a really long off season. Like I had all this was like ingrained in my head. I was there, twice a day, Saturday, Sunday, watching the games. But it's definitely fallen into the back.
Because it's this COVID thing has kind of made this year feel like 3 years long. It's dragging. So we briefly touched on it there, but Jeffrey Pollock, of course, the people are clamoring for him to be the new commissioner. It makes sense to promote from within, and I think this is a good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I think a lot of people are just asking who else. I mean, at this point, you would want someone that was involved in the 2.0, and it's a shame with Oliver Luck. I mean, I think it's either Pollock or they go out of left field. I just haven't seen. Everything I've seen is people speculating that it's Jeffrey Pollock. So, and not that obviously the sites know everything, but I do think that that's kind of the general consensus.
Right. And as there's two parts inside of me that would say it would be great if Larry Scott were hired away from the Pac-12 to be the commissioner of the XFL, but I want the XFL to succeed, and the Pac-12 is not succeeding on the football field right now, so maybe that's not a good idea. So I'm of two worlds on that. I heard his name in the mix, and I went, oh gosh, that's great for the Pac-12, but bad for the XFL. I don't know which one I'd want to suffer any further, because the Larry Scott rumor that I heard. The Pac-12 network launched, the network specifically for the conference, and it is not on DirecTV. It's on everywhere else, but not DirecTV. Meanwhile, DirecTV has all of the networks for all the different conferences, and you're missing out on there are schools that have taken out considerable bonds based on the Pac-12 network payouts that they're getting from the distribution hubs like the cable companies and stuff. And that's not happening to the level that they thought was going to happen because the DirecTV deal never got done. So I don't think I want Larry Scott overseeing this, and Jeffrey Pollock makes sense. He oversaw the massive growth in the World Series of Poker during the late 2000s. I know that it wasn't quite on everybody's radar back then, but it became a huge draw for ESPN when Pollock was in charge. So this might be the best way to go about it, is just to get someone in the mix that was already there.
Maybe I should start wearing like my poker shades. Start doing like we're playing the World Series.
The poker face.
Yeah.
Of course, last week you heard that we broke the news to Ocho Cinco. Didn't know that the CFL had been shuttered.
That was great. That was a great moment. If you didn't see it,
he's like, he didn't see that coming because there's a lot of money in the CFL to be made, and it kind of. I don't quite agree that there is for sure going to be an NFL season. Like we've discussed here before, the 8 teams is more conducive for a bubble environment. You'd have to do hubs, I think, for the NFL. So I don't know if there's going to be a season. They might figure it out. They might not. Chad knows the business a lot better than I do, clearly. And if he says it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But some of the CFL players, they're all going to be free as of, I think, Monday.
Yeah, I think of this Monday. I think that they announced, because we were a little, and Van pointed out, we were a little on top of the ball last week. But I think as of Monday, I think they were all good to go. So
as of Monday, they're all good to go. They're released from their contracts, and there's quite a potential of great talent that's going to be available for the XFL if it starts back up in 2021. Did you see anybody that you thought really stood out in terms of CFL opt-outs?
If you think I'm watching CFL football, you don't know who you're talking to.
I know you're pretty close to Canada,
Yeah.
And apparently, allegedly, it is a funner game, according to my friend Nigel. He's like, I think the CFL is better than the NFL. I'm like, okay, well, I don't agree with you, but I just looking over XFL News Hub, and they listed some people that they thought would be standouts. And I haven't done my research on CFL, as Reed hasn't, so I'm just going to take their word for it. But Sergio Castillo, a kicker, there are a lot of kickers that don't have jobs currently. Why him? And it's some of the info is I don't know. I have to really dig down deep and understand exactly which CFL players might be a fit in the XFL, because again, completely ignorant on all CFL things.
Well, but and just to get back to the NFL thing right now, I mean, we're like 3 weeks away. I mean, what, obviously they're going to start. I mean, walk me through, we're not doing preseason. We're not doing any of that. And so have they announced no fans? I mean, I'm on XFL all the time. I mean, honestly, like that's all my Twitter exists for. So, I mean, walk me through, what does NFL stuff look like right now?
Well, I mean, I just got an email this morning that said they're giving me a 20% discount on my NFL season pass, and I'm not renewing it because I'm not sure there is going to be a season. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. As it stands right now, there's just planning on skipping the preseason, going right into the regular season. I don't think that's safe in terms of injuries and conditioning and those types of things. So I don't know what's going to happen here. And as much as, again, harkening back to the Ocho Cinco interview, as much as he's for sure think it's going to happen, I'm not sure it is going to happen.
It's too many people. It's too much. You got to isolate. I mean, Mark was just talking on the News Hub podcast this week that, that the NBA and NHL have had, 0 cases at all. And then you were still having trouble with baseball, as of a couple weeks ago. So
as of a couple weeks ago, as of this last weekend, you had trouble in baseball. The Mets-Yankees series got postponed because one Met player and one Met coach, thankfully, they were able to quarantine them quickly. But one player and one coach tested positive, so the Mets-Yankees series over the weekend got postponed.
Here's something I did want to talk to you about too. And, with this whole bubble thing, with the COVID and all that, so we've had WWE now since March. I know they had a couple, right? Like I know Rusev or a couple of the people got COVID, right? Like early on. When was the last time WWE had a COVID case at all? I mean, unless I'm missing it.
I have to look at that.
And you figure, I mean, these are people that are going home, and for people that don't know, they first started wrestling, nobody was there, and then they expanded it, and they would have just really minimal, trainers would be in the audience. And now just this last week, they've kind of done it where they've built screens around, 2/3 of the ring, and, having people watch, virtually, and then they're kind of piping in fan noise. But here's wrestlers, you're wrestling someone different every week. You're coming, as close to contact as you can, right? Wrestling, sweat, spit, all that. I don't even know. Did you Google when was the last time they had a COVID case?
The last time they had a COVID case, according to a quick Google search, is July 13th. That's a month and a half ago, which is probably why Roman Reigns is back now that they've kind of got it under control. They seem to have a formula as to, I guess, keeping things as close to the vest as they can, if that's a term for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently, the last case we had was July 13th, it looks like.
Because I just was thinking about that because I did watch SummerSlam over the weekend. I did not give Vince McMahon my money. I went and watched it for free on the network with some other staff that paid for the network. I won't, Michael, sorry. but no, but I was watching SummerSlam and I thought, man, when was the last time you heard, I know there was a couple, and these are guys and girls that are going home every week, coming back, wrestling, going home. But that leads me back to my question with the MLB, with these guys that got, the coach and the player. Are they just going out for burritos after work? I mean, why can they not keep it locked down?
That's a good question. I don't know what kind of protocols individual teams are. Look, Manfred's botched this response when it comes to Major League Baseball. He's botched it completely. The fact that the Marlins are in first place but played half the games that everybody else has played. The Cardinals didn't play for a week and a half. MLB has missed the boat on figuring out how to do this, and to even get a World Series at this point is going to be based on the idea that they do a hub. That seems to be the way that everybody's operating. Is like the NBA has had no issues. Somebody leaves the NBA bubble, they got to stay in quarantine for 2 weeks before they're able to play. I mean, during clutch moments, the NHL's doing it great. So MLB has to move to a hub situation when it comes to the playoffs if they want a playoffs to happen. But I don't see the NFL being that kind of. It's too big for a hub. It really is.
Yeah, it's way too big.
And you can't say, okay, X and Y team are definitely not going to make the playoffs this year, so let's just not include them in the hub. That would be a stupid thing to do, because like you never know who is going to surprise you in the season and win, their first 7 games and not be expected. Like, the Browns could actually be good this year. Surprisingly, the Browns could be good this year. The Washington football team could be good this year. You can't say the other word.
Have they still not figured out a team name for that?
They're not going to for this year. It's just going to be Washington football team.
Man.
And I'm not a Washington football team fan, but I'm tempted to buy the merch.
Yeah, that's a good
just
merch.
To have it as a souvenir. I'd never wear it. Just be like, and tell my kids that
I might pop on some of that merch right now. I might pull up my. That's good. That's good merch. That's good merch.
Just to have it, just to say, look, I was alive when this team that had this name for almost, I think, over 100 years, if not just under 100 years, decided to change their name because everybody got woke and decided things that were racial weren't acceptable. So there you go. I just don't see it happening for the NFL. Sorry, Ocho Cinco. I disagree.
Well, and speaking of the bubble, I was listening to the This Week in XFL podcast this week, and Josh Davis, who friends on Twitter, he's writing for them now, and I wanted to pat myself on the back. He did a phone interview with Darius Bell, who was the DB coach for Dallas. And they were talking about the bubble and all of that. And he said the same thing I've been saying the last 2 weeks on here. He said, we did our training camps in December in Houston. He said all the teams had high school fields or, college fields, whatever that we played on. He goes, it would be no different just to extend that. Literally what I've been saying for the last 2 weeks, one of the Dallas coaches said, and I just thought, first off, it was just an interesting interview because he was talking about how, he found out about the news, about the league shutting down, found out about the bankruptcy. A really interesting interview, but then just how he just thought it was a no-brainer to take it down to Houston and do a bubble down there, just with all the different facilities. That basically that every team could have their own facility, come together, play, all in the same city. We'll be there, obviously, the whole time.
Right.
If that happens, obviously.
If that happens.
Don't tell Dorothy.
But how is Texas doing on their COVID cases though? That's the other question you have to start wondering is like, are you worried about putting this potential hub into a place where, for example, I'm looking at the map right now, and Houston's one of the hotter spots for this.
But didn't we talk about that with the NBA in Florida?
We did, but I mean, at the end of the day, it was the NBA that I think. It all relies on the football league. Then their protocols, where you're talking about having these different facilities. Maybe you don't have these different. Maybe you put 2 teams at a facility to limit the amount of travel.
Well, and I think too, and like I said, I don't know the politics and keeping the people quarantined or whatever, but I think with XFL guys, I think you just, put the fear of God in them and just, you lock everything down. I just think it's way easier to lock down guys that are making 50, 60K a year for this short season than it is to try to limit. Right? I mean, is that the issue, right? That people are going outside and doing other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there are issues where you have, we understand players have personal lives, and we understand, there are some players, for example, Garrett Cole had a baby either before the season started or right when the season started. So he had to kind of break protocol to go and be, with his wife. So I think it's a tough sell. It just would have to depend on how organized it is to get that bubble in place. And of course, this is a pipe dream that we're basically throwing out that this might happen in 2021. If this doesn't happen in 2021 and the Vegas odd makers are leaning more towards the 2022 bet, are we really worried about it then? We shouldn't be worried about that point. Like, this should be under control to the point where, there's a vaccine or, immunity actually holds. I don't understand, why people are losing immunity. I, of course, tested positive for antibodies, which means I did have it or was exposed to it. And I thought I was safe. I was like, great. wonderful, grand. And then, of course, later on, they said, oh, wait, your immunity only lasts maybe 3 months max. So if it's a 2022 start, then we don't have to worry about this. But again, if it's going to happen in February, like we suspect it might, then then this might still be an issue for us.
Yeah.
So going forward, our new XFL owners, Dwayne and Dany, and their group at Redbird, heard some interesting things about Redbird that I won't share on the podcast. I think you might have heard the same stuff that I had heard, which makes me think, gosh, I should throw some money in that.
Yeah.
Apparently, Dwayne and Dany are getting into Acorn app, the Acorn Smart app that
use it.
Yeah.
I use it. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Did you have any takes on that? It seems like it was a weird investment right now to make.
I don't understand. I guess I don't understand the concept between like how these apps make money, because Acorn is an app that rounds up your spending to the nearest dollar. And like, if you have something that's, $6.46, it rounds it up to $7, and then that 54 cents is put away for your college fund.
Yep.
How does Acorn make money? Like, I don't. That's the question I'm now looking at. So apparently, The Rock got involved because he said in people that, especially this year, there are so many people feeling as I did when I was struggling with just $7 in my pocket. Of course, $7 is the name of his production company. He's anxious. He says he was anxious and uncertain about his life and future. In particular, our children have experienced life changes, and through it, they have shown a resilience and heart that we adults and parents should be exceptionally proud of. I think he definitely is referring to all the stuff going on with COVID. And I'm interested to see his diversification.
Yeah.
This is interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, dropping, and I think they invested $7 million and then off the $7, the whole 7 thing. But
right.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, believe me, I was hoping for more XFL news this week and not like The Rock investing in Acorn. Right. I was like, okay, that's not the tweet I want to be seeing today. I want to be seeing about new commissioners or whatever. So.
True. Speaking of The Rock getting involved in the XFL, on my other podcast, Will Housing Ya, we had the chance to speak to Mick Foley, the hardcore legend himself. Dude Love, Cactus Jack, all his names. And he commented on what he thought about The Rock buying the XFL.
Did have this interview with TMZ, so you guys are getting a second helping here. I think the Rock's a really smart guy. His partner / ex-wife, the greatest former married couple ever, right? Rock and Dany Garcia, it really gives hope to anyone who's ever had trouble in their marriage that maybe one day they could be as great a couple as Rock and Dany are now, to the point where when I took my family to see Fighting My Family, the movie about Paige, when it producer Dwayne Johnson, producer Dany Garcia, and I lean over to my wife and go, "That's his ex-wife." Like, how cool is that she still looks out for his money and she doesn't get him involved in anything that they don't think they can make work with a lot of hard work and a lot of thought. So I don't think they do anything on a whim. I don't think this is not an insult when I say I don't think The Rock just does things on whims. He's a brand, right? Mm-hmm. He's a really respected brand. And if they bought it, I think it's with the idea that they can make it work.
How was Mick? I mean, I think he's. I asked you when you recorded. I said,
Super nice.
I said, did he go for the cheap pop? Did he go for the cheap hometown pop?
No, he didn't go for the cheap hometown pop. He did throw Al Snow under the bus. He was always taking his digs at Al Snow.
Yeah.
He threw Al Snow under the bus, and he talked about overall, he talked about his favorite matches. He talked about his favorite match to be in, which apparently was the 2005 Vengeance against Randy Orton. I guess he's a huge Randy Orton. That was his favorite match. I think maybe in the WWE there probably was some matches he did in Japan that were great, but he liked that match as one of his favorites that he's been in. And then, of course, the favorite match that he watched was Terry Funk and Ric Flair, apparently.
So Mick Foley's an Orton mark?
Mick Foley is apparently an Orton mark. And Mick Foley also loved Edge before. Mick Foley was a big proponent of Edge when the management didn't quite believe in him. So, he's a fan of Edge and Orton, so he probably really liked that WrestleMania bout that went on for 8 hours, it seemed.
Oh, the last man standing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah, that's funny.
The Carolina Panthers apparently are becoming XFL 2.2. They're signing some players from the XFL, including wide receiver Cam Phillips and quarterback PJ Walker. Of course, PJ Walker was the quarterback for Houston, I believe, right?
Yeah. Crazy. And it was crazy. And they were saying about this too, just how late it is to be signing Cam Phillips to finally get him in to be doing rounds and stuff. That there's a lot of speculation, because PJ and Cam were together on the Roughnecks and that he maybe vouched for Cam to come on. But it's just crazy to think that he's just getting looks right now and we're, 2.5 weeks out. But it's good for him.
And I'm wondering, what is the Panthers' depth chart situation if they're signing, a quarterback wide receiver tandem?
I know. Because it's Cam Newton, right? Isn't Cam Newton? No. He's on the Panthers. Who's going to be the big? I
think we got let's see who we got right now as their quarterbacks. We have I'll look at the roster for the Panthers real quick here. Pull it up. I didn't even have this ready. I'm so sorry. We have Bridgewater, who's going to be the starter probably. We've got Will Greer and PJ Walker. Those are their three quarterbacks right now.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about his chances to get any playtime?
I don't know much about Will Greer. He was from West Virginia. He's been in the NFL a couple years now. 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Doesn't seem too good. Probably just preseason stats from last year when he was a rookie. The way PJ Walker played in the XFL, you have to think that there's a definite chance. And as far as Teddy Bridgewater goes, he's been sporadically good. I kind of feel like maybe he's on the verge. So maybe PJ Walker becomes a glorified backup. I don't know. But PJ Walker has definitely shown with his work in Houston that he's able to play at a top level. So good for him. Good for him to come on and become an NFL player with his wide receiver Cam Phillips.
Now tell me about this, because I'm a little bit more of a casual NFL fan. I know my Brady's, I know my Wilson, I know my John Elway, right? Teddy Bridgewater, what is he? I mean, is that just I have no idea.
You have no idea about Teddy Bridgewater? No.
Is he should I be a Bridgewater mark?
I don't want to down talk the guy at all, because I just think he's been sporadic through his NFL career. He's been in the league 7 years now. He of course played in Minnesota. He played in for the Saints last year, and actually he played for the Saints last year, and this is probably what got him the deal in Carolina. Drew Brees went down, and Teddy Bridgewater filled in for 5 weeks and led them to victory in all 5 weeks that he was filling in. So maybe it's kind of interesting that you talk about him playing behind Drew Brees, because Drew Brees kind of had the same thing where he was kind of like this. He wasn't quite getting the job done in San Diego, and then New Orleans took a chance on him, and of course he became one of the most successful quarterbacks of all time. Maybe this is a situation where Teddy Bridgewater has finally broken through any mental blocks he might have. He's been good in spurts, but he hasn't held it up consistently over a season. So maybe that's the deal now, is that PJ Walker's in there to kind of push Teddy a little bit more to be that elite franchise level quarterback they need.
I will be curious, and I know that there's been a lot of talk in the past, with the XFL and just the QBs being so much more mobile. And I think that was a problem that we had with, our good friend, Mr. Silvers, Brandon Silvers, was, being more of that traditional quarterback model, where the BJ Daniels and, PJ Walker, and then even Cardell Jones, a little bit more, mobile. Do you think? How do you think that's going to translate with PJ? With the NFL versus the XFL. Do you think that is that I always use the example? That's going from college basketball to the NBA, and it's totally different, right? You have Adam Morrison that is this quote unquote star. Got to throw my digs at Adam Morrison, and then blows it in the NBA. I mean, is that how does it work going from for them going from XFL to the NFL?
I think it works better now, these running type quarterbacks, because I mean, Michael Vick was, I would want to say 20 years ahead of his time, because right now we are in the moment that these dual threat quarterbacks are really starting to kind of, NFL offenses are being sculpted around a dual threat quarterback, as opposed to forcing a dual threat quarterback to adhere to an NFL offense. You see that with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. You see that with Patrick Mahomes, who won a Super Bowl just now in Kansas City. There are these two type of quarterbacks, these dual threat type of quarterbacks that can do things with their arms and legs. And I mean, Russell Wilson's been doing it, not on the level that, Lamar Jackson is. Like, you always have to worry about Lamar Jackson running on you. You don't always have to worry about Russell Wilson running on you because he wants to pass first. He only runs because he gets in trouble. And when he gets into trouble and he runs, he does good things with his feet, but he doesn't rely on his feet. It's not a part of his arsenal that he puts at the forefront. That's what I'm trying to say is the difference between a Russell Wilson and a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson. So these kind of quarterbacks are definitely something that are becoming the norm in NFL offenses. And to that point, it's going to be interesting to see how Bill Belichick, because Tom Brady was not the most mobile quarterback, and Bill Belichick now has a quarterback that is not way more mobile, but more mobile in Cam Newton. It's going to be interesting to see how the Patriots either try to work their offense around Cam or try to fit Cam into a bubble with this team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I saw you got an email about season tickets.
This is a great story. This is so great. So I'm sitting there yesterday morning, and I'm like, I don't know why. I'm like getting in the shower. I'm checking Twitter, and I see XFL season tickets 2021 available now on the website. And so I'm like, I'm like a mark, right? I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I got to get on. So I'm going on to XFL, and you go, and I think it's still on there now. I looked this morning again, but you go, to the tickets and then by team, and it says, click here to reserve your 2021 seats. And this is, of course, no thought in my head at all. Like, well, how would they even right now? Nothing's going. But and I'm about so I click on the thing, and of course, like the link's dead. It's like can't connect to Ticketmaster, and so then they have like an email, and I'm like literally getting ready, like I'm composing this email to like tickets at xfl.com or whatever. Like, hey, it would just be really great if we could reserve our same. And I'm like, I'm so dumb. Like, this is totally either leftover from last year or. Right. Who the heck even knows? It's really weird, though, because it is on there. It says reserve your tickets for 2021. It's got the same kind of verbiage about, 5-game commitment and all this kind of stuff. But I did see it. I did see it a lot on Twitter yesterday. And then I got a call from, Van last night asking me about it, too. And I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if it's leftover code. I know that someone that was monitoring the XFL Twitter account, they were following 207 people, and now Connor Folk reports that they're following 208 people, which means that someone
is following the Rock. They're following the Rock.
Yeah, well, but that just means that someone has logged in. Not that that's right. The most breaking news in the world, but that does mean that someone has logged into that account and is because there hasn't been any activity since April when they did the Jake Gyllenhaal, like kiss and walk out, when they canceled the season. Right. So who knows? But it is really weird. It's on there. It's still on the site now. Obviously, there's no way in the world that they're ever going to sell anything right now, like at all. You know what I mean?
And I can't remember when were season tickets available for this last season.
Oh, gosh, that's a great question. I don't know, because we were on there and doing that. I mean, I could pull it up and look if you want to vamp for a second.
Yeah, I'm curious because it's been a year since the names were released, and I'm wondering
if 21st. Yep.
I'm wondering if we were able to reserve tickets before or after the names were released. Because if it was after the names were released, there's definitely a chance that they might still try to shoot for 2021 and get a season ticket package out. So
I got my tickets on October 10th of last year.
Okay.
So and that was, and we had gone back and forth a little bit because there was, that's a fun story for the podcast. So we had all gone on, all the Seattle guys. We had 7 guys. We were all going to get tickets. 2 different computers, trying to like log in and pick the different seats was like crazy. And so we get on, we're going to be row 1 behind the Dragons. We're so stoked. And then we look at the the map and the Ticketmaster map that they had put on was not, it was reversed. And I know we had talked about this, that it had the dragons on, it had the dragons on the flip flop on the, how it would not be normally, like the Seahawks are on the west, the down, like if you're looking at the map. And so we got into this hot panic because we were going to be on the visitor side away. And so we ended up getting, we were row one, on the 50-yard line, ended up talking our way into getting those tickets. So needless to say, I would like to be able to at least have the option to, I think they're crazy if they, and that's my question for you too. I think they're crazy if they don't let people option to get the tickets they have before. I mean, obviously they have all that.
I think I completely agree. I'm not going to disagree with you at all. I think that the people that were season ticket holders in this 2.0 version definitely need to be given priority for the 2.1 version whenever that happens, if it's next year or the year after. That would be a nice gesture toward the fans that, especially from Seattle and St. Louis, that have stuck through this and still supported what's going on with the XFL. I saw that, speaking of other fan base, I saw the Vipers Twitter, like the one that covers Vipers news for Twitter, popped up with a tweet recently. So people are starting to wake back up. We went into a little bit of a hibernation thanks to COVID, but I think people who are into the XFL are starting to wake back up, and it would be nice to reward those that were here for the 2.0, like yourself, like your friends over there in Seattle, like me down here in LA.
Bleeding red and yellow.
Bleeding red and yellow with the terrible logos. I'm getting a jacket, by the way. I've just got to find a nice Wildcat logo that isn't copyrighted or trademarked. So we're gonna get my jacket finally.
That's good.
Like, Van told me he had jackets up in the room and he just didn't know that I would have wanted one. I'm like, I wouldn't have worn a Red Sox jacket, but I would have worn pretty much any other jacket because I was freezing. Again, it was so cold.
I've never laughed so hard. Van called me after the podcast. I was driving home. We posted it on Friday, and then they had the Seattle Kraken merch store opened down, the brand new one they just opened.
Thanks for looking out for something for me to get there.
The worst merch, I'll tell you. I bought a hat. I got it in my bag. I think I'm going to return it. I had so much promise. I tell you, they need to consult some people about some of this merch. I mean, this is an NHL team. I figured, well, they're going to have the best merch of anything, right? Because the XFL is like, okay, it's hokey, whatever. They're doing their, I mean, now they got, like, I like this, my hat. Terrible merch. Anyway, I'm driving home. Van calls me. Hey, is this the bus driver that was throwing me under the bus about the jacket? I thought, I was teasing. We love you, Van.
Yeah, I think it was more like a miscommunication.
Yes.
And it wasn't a miscommunication that happened on my part. So you guys can work that out.
Yeah.
Y'all can work that out. But apparently I'm getting a jacket out of the deal, which I appreciate. Thank you, Van. It's not necessary. It really isn't. I was kind of like, busting chops a little bit, making fun of the scenario, the situation of freezing my butt off in DC because it was really, 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 really cold. St. Louis mascot. What's the story on this? You told me a little bit.
So they posted, because again, so August 21st, which is legitimately crazy to think that a year ago we got the team names. I remember standing in this very spot. We're watching the live stream. They were talking, is it going to be the Seattle Surge? Is it going to be the Seattle Kraken? We had talked about, because that name had been floating around. We knew the NHL was talking. And Dorothy came in and we saw the Dragons thing. I ended up filming a wedding that day. I just can vividly remember seeing the Dragons and all that stuff. Well, I guess St. Louis was going to do on the 1 year anniversary, was going to introduce their new mascot. It was called like Archie Beehawks. And I guess, because Archie, because like the St. Louis Arch, and then Beehawk, like the Valley Hawks.
Okay.
But so my question was, and could you think of any other, Seattle or what would be the other mascots? Because if St. Louis could have one, then we could definitely have like a dragon running around, for the Seattle.
Puget Dragon. I don't know.
Puge the Dragon.
Puge the Dragon. Puge the Dragon live by the sea. I don't know.
That's good.
I don't know. Terrible Claw Wildcat. That's probably one that. Oh man. I saw, by the way, I saw that, speaking of the year anniversary of the logos racing out, I saw that comment you made, you were like, you said, what did someone design this in MS Paint?
Yeah.
That you attributed to me. I'm like, it's exactly what I said when that thing came out. It was terrible. I keep going back to it. I focus on it because it was so bad. So bad. Maybe that's one thing Rock and Dany need to look at, is like getting better graphic artists. I mean, the Dragon stuff is great. I see the flag behind you. The Dragon stuff is great. It's perfect on branding. As far as like LA Wildcats, work needs to be done.
Yeah. Oh, it's too funny. Yeah, the mascots.
It just shows how committed St. Louis and the organization was to giving St. Louis a football team after, the Rams moved back where they belong. I'm sorry, St. Louis fans, but it's true. You guys stole the Rams first, and they got stolen back. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some more guests on next week. I've sent some emails out, sent some messages to people, and I haven't heard anything back, but we're hoping to get more guests on here to talk XFL. We'll hopefully have those on next week to talk about specific franchises that we haven't talked about, like the Guardians. We haven't said much about the Guardians. We've got a beat reporter that I've been chatting with to come on and discuss them. Hopefully that'll happen next week. And other than that, we're just, we're sitting back and waiting for the next thing to come out, the next next shoe to drop, so to speak, so we can feel more excited about this XFL season going forward, if it's in 2021 or 2022.
Yeah, we need some. I really think a lot of people thought Monday was going to be the day, after the sale closed Friday. They posted the thing with the keys, and they had the cool, like the face or the key that was the Rock's face, and they had the key that, I'm like, that was more graphic design than the whole original XFL ever had, was doing this like stupid key thing with like the Rock's face. But I really think people thought Monday was going to be the day, and it's been really quiet so far. I did remember what I was going to say, and it was I'll give Mark credit from News Hub that the Renegades with the bandanas were really on brand for the whole COVID thing, right? Like they were really, really on brand. They were ahead of their time. So I'm stealing the joke. I'll give credit. But yeah, so we got to figure out, like, the dragon with the bandana or the mask. We got to figure out all that.
Surgical mask.
Yeah. Well, he'd burn through it. Puge would burn through it.
Puge T-Dragon. Huge T-Dragon.
huge T-Dragon. That's it.
That's the mascot name. Huge T-Dragon. And with that, we'll leave you there. We'll be back next week with more XFL news. Hopefully some big news brewing. And fingers crossed, for the love of football. For the love of football. We'll get it back in 2021.
Thank you.